Hello, and welcome to Chucked and Blessed, where the weird gets wonderful and the woo-woo gets real. I'm your host, Charles Crooks, psychic, teacher, and guide on this deep dive into grounded spirituality. Let's keep it honest, curious, and connected. Here we go. Well, hello there, and welcome to another episode of Chucked and Blessed. I just want to take a quick moment to once again thank Haley for being my guest last week. When I put that episode out, I was actually traveling, working on some ghost investigations for Hey Ghost Hey Season 2, and so I had limited equipment with me, but I still wanted to get the episode out, so Thank you so much to Haley for being my guest again. It really meant a lot to me to have you on here. And one of the things that Haley had mentioned was a project I did a long time ago called Meditation Mondays. And I think I only did it on Instagram to begin with, where it might have been live, I think, for a series of Mondays, I think 8 weeks. I did a new little meditation and I put a version up on YouTube. And I've had a few people actually come up to me and tell me that they still enjoy using those today. So I think after the end of this season, I'm going to re-record those with the better microphone and release those as kind of like meditation bonus episodes. So if you want the actual practice and to go through it kind of guided, then those will come out after this season. And speaking of this season, this is episode 10. There's only going to be 12 that I have planned totally now. So after this episode, there will be 2 more for this first season, and then I'll start working on those meditations for everyone. But for this episode, I thought that we would talk about dreams and lucid dreaming and astral projection, as I feel like all of those topics kind of go hand in hand with one another. So, as usual, first let's start with just a very, very brief history overview on each of those 3 different topics, and we will go from there. Ancient civilizations placed tremendous importance on dreams as divine messages or insights. The Sumerians, circa 3100 BCE, engaged in dream interpretation, and even kings of the time acted on their dreams. For example, King Judea rebuilt a temple after having a divine instruction received in one of his own dreams. The Epic of Gilgamesh also contains prophetic dreams and interpretations of omens. In ancient Egypt, priests interpreted dreams through hieroglyphic records and rituals, considering them tools for guidance and healing. And across history, dreams featured prominently in religious, indigenous, and psychological traditions. As we also see in the case of Julius Caesar and Calpurnia, she actually had a dream of his death and warned him not to go to Senate the very next day, but it was Brutus who convinced him to go and not listen to the advice of his wife, and we all know how that ended, as that was the last time Julius Caesar was alive. But unfortunately today, modern society has largely lost the communal aspect of dream sharing and its broader cultural significance. All right, now we are going to move on to lucid dreaming, which is the phenomenon of realizing you're dreaming while you're already in a dream. And this was first noted by Aristotle in the 4th century BCE. And it's also noted in Eastern traditions, notably Hindu and Tibetan Buddhist practices, and include forms of dream awareness. Ancient texts like the Upanishads, the Vigyan Bhairav Tantra, and Tibetan Book of the Dead describe methods to direct consciousness within dreams. And the term lucid dream was formally introduced in 1913 by Dutch psychiatrist Frederik van Eden, who logged hundreds of personal experiences of dream awareness and control. And then in the modern era, in the modern era, scientists including Celia Green, 1968, linked lucid dreams to REM sleep and compiled extensive first-hand accounts. And then in the 1970s, it marked a breakthrough with Keith Hearn. He first demonstrated signaling from within a dream via eye movements monitored on EEG. And Stephen LaBerge replicated and elaborated on this research at Stanford. LaBerge also developed induction techniques like MILD, and founded the Lucidity Institute. Today, lucid dreaming is both accessible and scientifically validated. Confirmed benefits include creativity, nightmare reduction, and emotional healing, though care is advised to avoid sleep disruption or adverse effects, of course. And lastly, we have astral projection. Astral projection, also known as the out-of-body experience, has its roots traced back thousands of years. In ancient Egypt, the concept of the Ka referred to a spiritual duplicative essence capable of leaving the body in dreams or after death. Rituals existed for consciously projecting the Ka into space outside of ourselves. Greco-Roman accounts include Plutarch's narrative of Aristeas from the 1st century A.D., who reported an out-of-body experience during a coma, feeling separated from the body. He had interactions with a spiritual guide, and it is said he returned just in time to avoid burial. Hindu philosophy speaks of multiple bodies, the subtle astral body, which sits between the physical form and pure consciousness. And through practices like meditation and sense withdrawal, it can traverse the astral realms. In the 19th century, the formal concept of astral projection was shaped by theosophy, particularly Helena Blavatsky's notion of the astral body, and later elaborations by occult groups like the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. And then Emanuel Swedenborg from the 18th century recorded extensive out-of-body experiences in his writings. In 20th century, figures such as Edgar Cayce, Robert Monroe, who popularized OBEs, or out-of-body experiences, via his research institute, and others like Aleister Crowley, Herwood Carrington, and Carlos Castaneda further explored and popularized the concept. Okay, so just to go over the three kind of main categories that we have once more, we have dreams, which are you are asleep and you really have no control over what you are experiencing. And it's a lot of the mental processing that we need to do in between our days. But then you have lucid dreaming, so you are dreaming, but then you become aware that you were actually in a dream, but it does start from a dream first. So that is having the awareness that you are dreaming. And then lastly, we have astral projection, or also the out-of-body experience, and that is consciously leaving your body. So your body is asleep, essentially, and your consciousness is able to go beyond your body. So first, let's start with dreams, and just kind of a little bit about my experience with them, as I would say I have a very crazy dream life. For as long as I can remember, I have always had extremely vivid dreams, and oftentimes when I wake up, I will feel like I've literally been awake all night. And it doesn't necessarily matter if the dreams were more on the fantastical side or more mundane, from like forgetting to do your homework, you're getting locked out of your locker, not knowing the combination, going to class without your pants on, all of those normal kind of things. Of course, I would have too. But I would also just really feel exhausted and would have the sense that I had been up all night, but knowing that it was just my dreams and that they felt so real to me. And there were even times where I would wake up in the morning, and it would even take time for reality to kind of seep in and realize, oh no, that actually was a dream. And it was just my mind thinking about whatever I might have seen that day. And so when it comes to dreaming, because my dreams would be so strong and I would be so immersed in that world, it was very hard for me to kind of snap out of that and realize that I was dreaming to actually have lucid dreams. And there's only really a handful of times in my life where I can really think about where I've had that lucidity within a dream. Most recently, the one I can think about is when I was in Japan. I've often noticed that if I do have lucid dreams, they typically tend to happen in the morning after I've gotten up, maybe gone to the bathroom, and then where you come back to sleep. And then within that time of going back to sleep and waking up again, I feel like I have the strongest dreams. And of course, that's not unique to me, that happens that way with a lot of people. And I feel like that was the just right condition for this time while I was in Japan. And so I remember within the dream that I was walking down the streets of Bellingham, and for some reason in this moment, I just had such clarity, and I knew that that was incorrect, and I knew that I was within a dream, and that I could go from there and do whatever I wanted to do. So, of course, I just started to fly, and I took off and just flew for the rest of the dream that I was lucid for, as that is always one of my favorite things to do in dream life, is to fly. And I feel like, too, it even gets less and less the older that I've gotten, whereas that is something I would have flying dreams a lot as a kid. So, of course, if I get lucid, I am going flying every time. As it's a feeling that you can't describe, because you still feel it sensationally, even though you're dreaming. So for me, always exciting. And now for the last one, astral projection. I initially came to this concept, I think I was in 8th grade, and it might have been initially mentioned within Buffy the Vampire Slayer, because that's when that show first started airing for me. And of course, super fascinated with anything mentioned in that show. But I think it was a friend that said he had one of his siblings, boyfriend or girlfriend, was really into it at the time. And of course, having strong dreams, I was absolutely fascinated with the ability to consciously leave your body to essentially have like a waking dream. And so, of course, I started to research it any way I could, tried to find any technique that would work for me, and I never had any success for many, many years. So, and for a long time, I honestly thought that it was just never going to be a thing for me or something that I would ever experience. But then, one time in my late 20s, I had just had a friend come and visit, and we had a good time together. And I was exhausted, just taking a nap. I had no obligations. It was a holiday weekend, and I just really needed to relax and have some downtime. So I took a nap, and I woke up from it, and I just remember having this really intense feeling of relaxation. There was no reason for me to get up. Didn't have to hurry for anything, and it just felt good and comfortable to lay there. So I thought, okay, why not just lean into this feeling a little bit more? And I did, and I started to get that sensation where you start to feel like you're falling a little bit. However, usually when I get that feeling, I always jerk awake or kind of snap out of it really quickly, and it almost feels kind of uncomfortable. But this time, I was so relaxed that I thought, why don't I just lean into this feeling and see what happens? And so I got that sensation like I was falling, and I leaned into it just like I thought I should, and I felt like I was falling, but then it felt like I was caught by this really soft, incredible cushion. And I just remember thinking, like, ooh, this is actually really nice. It feels just very gentle, and it feels very natural. So let's keep rolling with it. And then I just kept feeling into the feeling, and I felt another wave of that falling sensation. So I was like, okay, let's do the exact same thing and lean into this one. And I felt the falling sensation, and I felt like I hit that cushion again. And again, it was just this really deep relaxation and feeling of peace that came with it. And now this probably happened about one more time before the very last time. I didn't expect anything to happen. I just kind of leaned into that falling sensation. And instead of hitting that cushion, not only did I hit it, but I felt like as soon as I hit it, it threw me upwards, and I was standing up without any effort. It was so easy. And so I felt the sensation that, again, I fell, hit the cushion, but this time I sprung upwards, and I kind of looked around, and I realized that I was looking through what I guess I call it my dream eyes. I could tell that I wasn't fully awake, but it was just like I was in a dream. I could still see things, but it didn't quite feel like I was awake. And then, of course, I looked down at the bed and I saw my body lying there, and I had the instant realization of knowing what had happened, and I knew that I was out of my body. Now, of course, if you've ever felt really intense excitement in a dream, that can snap you back to waking up almost instantly. So knowing what had happened, and especially not even trying to make it happen, I was beyond excited. And of course, I told myself, calm down, just take a moment, or you're going to snap back to your body and you'll have to figure this out all over again. So I went to the window of my bedroom, and as soon as I looked out my window, I just remember that I was almost kind of like sucked out of it, and I was floating above the street off into the city around me. And then again, the excitement hit, and I woke up. And so even though I had such this brief and short experience, it was everything that I needed to give me the validation that I had wanted for years, of knowing that this was actually a real thing that could be experienced. And not only that, but I was capable of experiencing it as well. And so, of course, that put me on really this natural high that I would say is better than any drug I have ever experienced. And I think it touched a part of myself that, again, validated something so deep and so spiritual, to know that there are these different levels within ourselves, that, again, it just put me on this high that I can't even describe. And so I felt so excited that I knew not only that I could do it, but I knew how to do it, and I knew exactly what the feeling was of how to get there. So, of course, the very next day, I was like, all right, we're going to do the exact same thing, and we're going to make this happen again. So I took a nap, and of course it was hard to take a nap because I already had the excitement of anticipating what could happen from this. And already that made it a little bit shakier and harder to get into the process because I already had that anticipation. It's almost like if you've done a meditation for the first time and you have this really profound experience with it, and then you go and try to do that same meditation again and you don't have that same experience, and it can be very disappointing. But that was actually a very good spiritual lesson in energetics that I'll get to in just a little bit here. But I will say the second time going into it, I already kind of had that anticipation. So already the vibe was a little bit different. But again, I knew how to do it. So I was like, okay, we're going to make this happen. So took a nap, and for me, part of the process was taking one of my blankets and wrapping it around my eyes, almost kind of like a bandana. So that way it completely blocked out all light, but also that feeling of kind of that wrapped feeling around my eyes or around my head just added to the extra comfort, I think, and safety of being able to go into this a little bit deeper than I normally do. As that was something I would always do as a kid trying to sleep in, especially as the sun was coming up. I would wrap something around my eyes just so I wouldn't have to deal with that light. And so I think that's why that also helps and works for me. So took a nap, and again, I woke up and I felt that really relaxed feeling. And again, I was able to get myself to that space of being relaxed enough but aware enough until I felt the falling feeling and would hit the cushion. And again, same thing. And of course, already knowing what I was going through, still had that anticipation, that excitement, which I think made it still not as intense as the first time. But I still got to where I needed to be, and again, felt that feeling of falling, hitting the cushion, and springing right up. And this time, I wasn't right in my room. I was in a different room in front of a door, and I remember the room was yellow. It also had some red and blue to it, kind of very primary colors, and also kind of very geometric. Everything was very square, rectangular in there as well. And I went through the door to that room, which took me to another door. And by the time I got to the second door, again, I was so excited that I snapped back, and I was fully aware and awake again. And those are actually the only 2 times that I have ever astrally projected or had a full out-of-body experience consciously in my life. And I think part of now my problem is that I never nap anymore, or I never give myself the time in the mornings after I wake up to really kind of experience that really nice twilight zone. And therefore, I think I haven't had another encounter like that again, or experience, I should say, not encounter. So would I love to experience it again? Absolutely. But I also know that I have to make the conditions right, but also be able to step outside of the effort of trying to make it happen. And I think also knowing that it might not happen the same way every single time. I always kind of think of the Narnia books, where they said once you've come to Narnia one way, you can't get back that same way. And I always kind of think about that's similar to meditating, where you might have a really profound experience with one meditation, but again, like I said earlier, that it then becomes kind of hard because you have that expectation that it's going to go the same way, and it usually doesn't. And I think this is a very good lesson in effort and energy and how that all works together, because even when I read people, I find that if I try to read or if I try to force it, it's almost like you're constricting that energetic flow. Whereas if you can go in absolutely just open and have no expectations of what's going to come up and just let yourself see what you're going to see, then that is often where you have the much stronger and better experiences in being able to connect with someone's energy. And so I think that kind of goes across all forms of energetics and spirituality, whereas you really have to let go of effort. And so that is where I found success in trying to astral project, and I know I can do it again. It's just a matter of allowing myself to do again, and I haven't. So one day we will get there again. Another aspect of dreams and energy that I would like to touch on or just kind of share with is I found that when I was younger and I would be very much wrapped up in my dreams, whether I was asleep or awake. And of course, I would have really good dream recall because they were so vivid. And I found that I would often hold my energy pretty much in my head and above my head outside of my space. And I think it allowed me to connect with this very strong, creative, almost kind of inspirational space, which I think is great to tap into. But it often would kind of, on an energetic level, keep me disconnected fully from being in my body. And so as I went through my clairvoyance training, I really kind of was aware of this more and more, and started to bring my energy down into my body more regularly. And I felt that I gained more focus, within myself, and I was able to be more present within myself and just not always in that kind of daydreamy state, which I could access very easily because I was so used to having my energy, I think, up in that kind of upper zone of myself that's related to dreams and kind of all of those higher visions and everything. But I think also it's important to say with dreams, even though sometimes it might feel like we're going off and experiencing all these different types of places and people and things, that it's still important to note that all of that is coming from you. So very much like I see readings as reflections of our energy, I think it's the same thing with dreams, that those are very much a reflection of our energy. And I think when I was learning this, it was kind of hard for me to take in because it always felt like I was going to these other places with my dreams, and I didn't want to fully accept that that was all still a part of me. Very much like I never really wanted to accept that readings were also a reflection of me. And so I think on an energetic level, that was something that I kind of had to take time and take responsibility for and just really, really own that aspect of self as well. And so I'm going to share with you guys just 2 little exercises that you can do to help balance out your energy in relation to your dreams. So the first one that we are going to look at is really just calling back your energy from that dream world, from that dream life, to kind of be present with you in your waking self again. Okay, so for this exercise, you want to get yourself nice and comfy in your seat. I always prefer to sit up instead of lying down because I fall asleep so easily when I lie down and I lose focus very quickly. So I find that sitting up helps greatly for me just to be able to keep my attention and focus going. So go ahead, sit down, get nice and comfortable, and begin to slow your breathing and just kind of settle in with yourself. And you want to let your day go and just everything that's happening in your world, just let that kind of slough off. Don't worry, it's going to be there for you once you finish this. You can always go back to that stuff. Trust your mind won't let you not forget it either. So just for this moment, go ahead, take a few nice deep breaths. And get yourself nice and settled and grounded within your body. And this is something that you can do every morning after you wake up. It doesn't have to be a long practice either. But we're just taking a moment to be present with your breath and letting the mind be quiet. And I want you to set the intention that everything you did while you were sleeping and that you experienced in your dream life, all the energy that you left around in dream world, we're just going to set that intention that that is coming back to you. And you can see that however it wants to look. I always kind of like to see that as colored ribbons of light flowing back to me. And you might see it come back to one spot in your body, or it might come back to several. And I just kind of allow myself to let that energy fill up my body, and I'll intentionally see it flowing down into my feet, flowing up through the legs, almost like it's filling me up, through the hips to the chest, through the head. But you're just calling everything that was yours back to you. And take a few nice deep breaths again, and go ahead and open your eyes. And just kind of wiggle everything out. And there you have it. Just a very, very simple technique to be able to call your energy back to you. And it doesn't have to be from dreamland. You can use this from anything, from anywhere, from any person to call back your energy. All that matters is the intention that you set. All right, and for our second exercise, this is going to be great when you want to find interpretation from your dreams, especially if you have those really bizarre dreams and have no idea what they could mean. This is just a great little exercise. Again, very simple, does not have to be a big process that you can do to get answers from yourself, because after all, if your dreams are coming from you, then you have all the answers that you need. They might just be a little bit more buried. So this is going to be a very simple way for you to access your own intuition. So we're going to start the exact same way with sitting upright and slowing your breathing. And I like to do in through the nose and out through the mouth if you can. It's not the end of the world if you can't. Allergies will happen. Sickness happens. Noses get clogged. That's all right. But just slow that breathing again. And we're doing that to get nice and settled within our body. And let the mind chatter be quiet as well, because we want a nice open space within ourselves to be able to hear or see messages from our own intuition. And so while you're in this nice calm space, nice aware calm space, I want you to set the intention to get meaning from either a symbol or a moment of a dream that you had. And most importantly, after you set that intention, I want you to be open with curiosity. When we try to force things again, like I mentioned earlier, even if we're trying to force answers, we're not allowing our intuitive voice to come through. So all we're doing is just putting ourselves in a space of being open, so that way our deeper intuition and knowledge can come through to us. And all you want to do is be open and aware. And maybe you might hear something in your head. It's okay if it sounds like your own voice. You might get an answer that way. You might see an object or a symbol or a person that can have meaning to you. Where it might even come through is like a movie that you see in your mind. There is no right or wrong way to experience this. But we just want to be open to allow that intuitive message to come through. And then once you feel like you have it, you can take a few nice deep breaths. Again, kind of wiggle the body just to bring that energy presently back to all of yourself. And usually whenever I do this, I like to write down what I experienced, just so that way it can either give me direction if I have to go back, or kind of look into things and say, well, I understand this part, but maybe not this part. And just kind of allow that to give you direction and next steps. So I greatly encourage you to try out both of those and see how they go, see how you feel. And I would love to hear about your experience if you do. You can always email me at info@charlescrooks.com. And I love to have conversations about all of this stuff. And you don't always have to agree with me either. And so I love being able to talk about those different points too. And it doesn't really necessarily matter if we find the exact common understanding. I think as long as we're able to have that shared experience, then fantastic. Alrighty, my friends, that is officially all I have for you today. I cannot thank you enough for being here and being open. You can visit charlescrooks.com or info@charlescrooks.com to book a reading. May you forever be chucked and blessed, and always go into this world with clear eyes and an open butt. So until next time, stay curious, my friends.